ways, you can't help but you kind of feel sympathy for J.D. Vance having to defend Donald Trump, who he himself openly denounced. It's kind of like being Diddy's defense attorney, you know?
Chris, and I think that I've learned my lesson on speaking for the president before he and I have actually talked about an issue.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness.
Hold on to your seats, because Jimmy Kimmel just unleashed a late-night obliteration so savage, J.D. Vance might need a GPS to find his dignity. This wasn't your average roast. Kimmel ripped through Vance's political flip-flops, sold-out principles, and MAGA bootlicking with surgical precision. Every punchline landed like a knockout, exposing the hypocrisy Vance has been hiding behind. By the time the monologue ended, Vance's reputation was smoking rubble. Trust me, you don't want to miss how Kimmel dismantled him piece by humiliating piece.
Vance celebrated his Zelensky sucker punch with a ski trip. The Vance traveled to the Sugarbush Resort, which coincidentally, Sugarbush is also J.D. Vance's Secret Service code name. But Vance, I think he picked the wrong state to relax him, because when he got to Vermont, he was greeted by hundreds of protesters.
Let's talk about J.D. Vance, a man so dedicated to the art of self-reinvention, he makes shapeshifters, chameleons, and full-blown method actors look downright lazy. At this point, if J.D. flipped any harder, he'd qualify as Olympic gymnastics material. Once upon a time, not even that long ago, J.D. was parading around as the intellectual cowboy of Middle America. The tough-talking, Yale-educated, best-selling author who had no problem tearing Trump apart with surgical precision. He was supposed to be the voice of reason, the conservative outsider who spoke truth to power and still had dirt under his fingernails.
The main event from last night was the crowning of Donald Trump's MAGA movement heir apparent. No, not that guy. No. There you go. The other dark-haired, bearded dude right in front of that one, J.D. Vance. I got to tell you something, man. That ain't right. It's like for vice president, Donald selected the actor who would be hired to play Don Jr. in the Lifetime movie.
Fast forward to now, and what do we have? The exact same guy, now contorted so hard into a Trump cheerleader, you half expect him to show up at Mar-a-Lago in full pom-pom regalia. It's not even subtle. The transformation is so jarring, so complete, it deserves its own Marvel origin story. Move over, Bruce Banner. We're talking about the incredible shrinking backbone.
The former president's comments yesterday to the National Association of Black Journalists, where he said that Vice President Harris is, quote, all of a sudden black. As a father of 3 biracial children, did those comments give you pause at all?
They don't give me pause at all. Look, all he said is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She goes to Georgia 2 days ago. She was raised in Canada. She puts on a fake Southern accent. She is everything to everybody, and she pretends to be somebody different depending on which audience she's in front of. I think it's totally reasonable for the president to call that out.
And Jimmy Kimmel? Oh, Kimmel took one look at that political 180 and said, yeah, let's unpack that mess. Because JD's flip-flop isn't just a mild shift in perspective, it's the political equivalent of selling your soul at a garage sale and throwing in your self-respect as a free bonus. Kimmel wasted zero time torching the whole act.
Trump's running mate, Maybelline brand ambassador J.D. Vance, he enjoys taking questions from the press at his appearances so the crowd can boo the reporters. I guess that's fun for him. So at a campaign stop in Detroit, a reporter asked him about these calls with Putin, and J.D. doesn't seem to have any problem with them at all.
You know the drill. Vance once called Trump corrosive, a danger to democracy, unfit for office. You name it, he said it. He practically had a front row seat at the anti-Trump roast. But somewhere along the line, he realized there's no political book deal without kissing the ring. Suddenly, it's like he got hit with a Make America Great Again mind control ray. All that intellectual posturing, gone. All that moral high ground, evaporated.
And my biggest problem with Trump, and there are many, many things to pick out, but my biggest problem with Trump is that his message to the right, especially the white working class of which I came from, is anti-conservative and in some ways anti-American. It's fundamentally that the deck is so stacked against you that unless I'm the president, nothing that you do will change your life's outcomes. I think it's wrong, and I think it's very self-destructive. And so one of the takeaways is not just that the Republican Party base is somehow fundamentally flawed in a way that's unique in American political history. It's that Trump is a really bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
Kimmel went to town, highlighting how Vance's transformation is the political equivalent of watching someone trade in their spine for a loyalty badge. Every jab hit harder because it's true. JD didn't just pivot. He abandoned every principle he sold to the public, stuffed it in a MAGA hat, and now marches lockstep behind the very man he warned America about. It's almost poetic. Here's JDVance, the once defiant voice, reduced to nodding along while Trump bungles interviews, rants about crowd sizes, and rage posts at 3 a.m. Vance's entire persona now revolves around being Trump's emotional support animal, ready to bark on cue whenever the orange overlord throws a tantrum. Honestly, at this rate, someone should check if he's got a Property of Mar-a-Lago stamp on his forehead. Kimmel didn't even have to stretch. The material writes itself. How does someone go from scathing critic to sycophantic yes man without pulling a muscle? Simple. Sell out, pretend it's strategy, and hope no one notices. Except everyone noticed, especially Jimmy. And let's not forget the irony. Vance built his brand criticizing exactly the kind of hollow political grifters he's now emulating. Watching him cling to Trump like a lifeboat is like seeing a man desperately trying to rewrite his own Wikipedia page in real time while the receipts are everywhere. Kimmel made sure those receipts were front and center.
I'm running to be your next Vice President of the United States, and I'm incredibly honored to stand here and ask you for your vote and ask you for your hard work. But if we win, and I believe that we are going to win in 33 days, my friends, I feel very confident about it.
Watch. Do we have a president? He just got back from California. He was supposed to go to the White House. He never got there. He went to Delaware, and he's laying on a beach sleeping all day long. No, seriously, who the hell wants to sleep? And who wants to sleep in public? He's sleeping. Do you think President Xi of China is at a beach sleeping? Do you think Kim Jong-un is sleeping from North Korea with his nuclear weapons all over the place? They don't sleep so much. Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president.
It's not just hypocrisy, it's performance art at this point. And the fact that JD thinks no one remembers his old quotes, his old interviews, his old indignation, that's the funniest part. The internet never forgets JD, and neither does Jimmy Kimmel. And of course, this caught Jimmy Kimmel's attention, because what else are you supposed to do when a Yale-educated Silicon Valley tech investor suddenly starts talking like he was born inside a Bass Pro Shop, baptized in Bud Light, and raised on Fox News soundbites? You roast him, publicly, viciously, relentlessly. And Kimmel didn't just hold back. He practically set up a comedy demolition crew and bulldozed JDVance's entire rebrand right there on national television. It's like JD woke up one morning, looked in the mirror, and thought, you know what'll get me votes? Pretending I spent my childhood chewing tobacco while rebuilding carburetors. Never mind that he spent most of his career in boardrooms, not backwoods, and Jimmy saw right through it. He's got a radar for political cosplay, and JD's new persona set it off like a 5-alarm fire.
As somebody who doesn't like Trump, myself, the elites were right about Donald Trump, right? I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. If I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary.
This woman is not a show-off. She's just telling what happened so we can know it.
Yeah, and it's sort of, it makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, denial is normal.
And
Kimmel didn't even have to exaggerate. He pointed out exactly what the rest of us have been thinking. How does a man go from sipping lattes in Silicon Valley to suddenly acting like he's the lost member of Duck Dynasty? It's the political equivalent of seeing a billionaire show up in camo and acting surprised that Walmart has an automotive section. Jimmy dug in deep. He mocked how JD suddenly developed this southern drawl out of nowhere. like it was a free accessory with every Trump rally. He joked about how Vance went from writing best-selling memoirs to standing behind Trump with the same glazed look Mike Pence had during 4 years of being a human prop. And every punchline landed because JD's transformation wasn't subtle. It was screamingly obvious. Kimmel turned it into a late-night clinic on how to spot a sellout in real time. No mercy, no soft jabs, just relentless surgical takedowns that left JD's credibility lying flat on the studio floor. Vance has spent the last few years doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics to justify his journey from Trump critic to Trump megaphone. This is the same guy who once compared Trumpism to heroin addiction. Seriously, look it up. And now he's out here looking like the world's most eager campaign intern, nodding in agreement every time Trump says something unhinged, which is roughly every 7 seconds.
Look, is there something wrong with speaking to world leaders?
First of all, yes. And second, yes, it's very wrong to have chats with dictators who are trying to exterminate our allies when you aren't the president anymore. Same reason you don't throw a birthday party for Diddy.
Kimmel saw the hypocrisy, and boy, did he light him up. JD Vance's political evolution isn't even an evolution, it's a nosedive. He went from writing Hillbilly Elegy to starring in Bootlicker, the JD Vance story. And let's be honest, his whole rebrand feels about as authentic as a gas station Rolex. The jokes wrote themselves. JD talks tough, but every time Trump enters the room, he looks like he's auditioning to be Trump's next campaign towel boy. It's the kind of political submission that makes even Lindsey Graham go, damn, have some dignity. And when Kimmel pointed this out, oh, JD didn't like that. Because like most politicians who've sold their soul for a MAGA endorsement, JD desperately wants to be seen as authentic while simultaneously morphing into whatever version of a human Trump needs at the moment. One day, he's the reasonable Rust Belt author. The next, he's full Hunter Biden laptop mode on cable news, blinking in Morse code for help. But here's where it gets especially funny. JD's entire career is based on being a voice of the people. Problem is, which people? The ones who read Hillbilly Elegy and thought he was some wise, folksy savior? Or the ones at Trump rallies yelling, "Lock him up," about every single person they've seen on MSNBC? Because those two groups, they ain't exactly shopping at the same Walmart.
Hollow shell of a human being. Probably the most talked about moment of the debate last week was when Vance refused to concede that Trump lost the election, which is interesting because CNN yesterday found an interview Vance did with Megyn Kelly in November of 2020 in which he said this.
I really don't see any reason to think that this is going to become violent or chaotic. I think that when Biden is inaugurated, people will more or less accept it, and it'll be on to the next fight.
Good call, Nostradamus.
Jimmy Kimmel called it for what it was. JD Vance is a walking contradiction in a red tie. The man rails against elites while holding a Stanford degree and doing tech investments in Silicon Valley. He talks about the forgotten man, then spends half his time cozying up to billionaires and pretending he didn't just spend years calling Trump unfit for office. And now JD's latest mission, he's out there acting like he's Trump's translator for middle America, which is ironic because half the time Trump is rambling, even his own brain doesn't understand what he's saying. But JD nods, translates, and spins it like it's gospel. If Trump claimed the moon was made of Diet Coke, JD would be on Fox News explaining the science. Let's be real. JD doesn't serve constituents. He serves clout. And Trump is the golden goose that lays MAGA-flavored approval ratings. So JD says whatever he needs to say, votes however he's told, and hopes no one remembers that 2 years ago he was basically writing think pieces titled, "Why Trump is the End of Western Civilization." Unfortunately for JD, the internet has a phenomenal memory.
In 2020, JD Vance never said anything about the election being stolen. He was too busy Googling the best way to 69 a futon.
And that's what makes Kimmel's takedown even better. It wasn't just about JD's flip-flopping, it was about how shameless he is while doing it. He's not trying to hide the hypocrisy, he's just banking on voters being too distracted by culture wars and gas prices to notice that their senator is cosplaying as someone he used to warn them about. Kimmel joked that JD's transformation was so severe, scientists should be studying him for signs of political shapeshifting. Forget lizard people. Just look at JD's timeline. If you mapped his positions over time, it'd look like a toddler's Etch-a-Sketch after espresso. And here's the kicker, JDVance still wants to be seen as an intellectual. He'll go on a rant about masculinity and the decline of Western values. Then 10 minutes later, he's tweeting about how Trump is basically Moses with better branding. It's the intellectual equivalent of drinking Mountain Dew out of a wine glass and calling it culture.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
But it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast.
You just said that this is a story that you created.
Kimmel didn't just clown JD, he exposed him. Because once you take away the book deal, the fake drawl, and the political cosplay, what's left? A man who traded in principles for proximity. A politician who thought no one would notice if he rebranded overnight like a failed influencer launching a podcast. And JD? He took the bait. Because these guys always do. You can dish out hot takes on Twitter all day, but the second a late night host hits you with a 5-minute monologue, suddenly it's all, this is unfair, and late night comedy is biased. Like, buddy, this isn't bias, it's a roast, and you're the turkey. JD's problem isn't just that he changed his mind, it's that he denied ever having one to begin with. He's out here rewriting history like it's a deleted scene from The Apprentice, hoping no one finds the receipts. But this is 2025. The receipts aren't just saved, they're archived, screenshotted, and waiting for their moment. And as JD gets deeper into MAGA world, the cringe levels only rise. Every interview, every tweet, every attempt at culture war commentary sounds like a guy trying to win a radio contest for best Trump imitation. It's almost sad. Almost. But not really. Because this is what happens when you throw out your spine and replace it with polling data.
99% of the country, they don't vote on who the vice presidential nominee. They're voting for Donald Trump or for Kamala Harris, not for JD or Tim Walz, right? But what I think that he does believe, because he made it the main focus of his vetting process, is, do I think this person can be president on day one if, God forbid, something happens? Yes. So I absolutely am sure that Donald Trump is confident in my abilities. I also think that he's right, that the politics of this...
And while Kimmel was out here clowning JDVance on national television, JD's fans did what they always do. Cry cancel culture while trying to cancel a comedian. The irony is so rich, Elon Musk tried to buy it. So now JD's trapped in the worst place for any political opportunist, between who he was and who he pretends to be. And every time he tries to play both sides, late night hosts like Kimmel are going to be there, ready with the clips, the quotes, and the savage punchlines. Because the truth is, JDVance isn't a leader. He's a rebrand, a product. A knockoff political figure slapped together in a focus group, shrink-wrapped in culture war buzzwords, and shoved onto the Senate floor like a malfunctioning action figure that just repeats, Trump was right every time you pull the string. And honestly, it's not even the betrayal that's most infuriating. It's the smugness, the way he walks around like no one's noticed, like every interview he gave in 2016 isn't on YouTube. Like we didn't all read Hillbilly Elegy and then watch him become the exact thing he claimed to hate. But Jimmy Kimmel noticed, and he lit the match. And just like Trump before him, JDVance is learning the hard way. Comedy is truth's best friend, and nothing exposes a phony faster than a punchline that lands a little too close to home.